stop slipping, and stop cutting your socks. We have 15 different color options between 3 grip socks and 2 sleeve types. Something for everybody at a price that just makes sense. Available now at puregripsocks.com.
Believe it or not, one of the most common questions that I get asked on a daily basis is what are the best football boots for use on artificial grass? Where the answer seems pretty obvious in that you want something with an AG specific stud pattern, but it's also one of those questions that's kind of impossible to answer because fit, feel, and general performance characteristics are going to vary quite dramatically from one boot to the next. So at the end of the day, it does very much depend on what you like and want. However, if you were open to absolutely anything and just wanted the best pair of football boots for use on AG, I actually think this might be the best AG specific football boot. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the AG Pro variation of the Nike Phantom 6 Elite Highs in the launch colorway that I know everybody loves so much, and with what has been a fairly controversial design as far as aesthetics go, but don't worry, you can get these now in a mostly blacked out colorway that hides pretty much all of it. Where aside from the looks, not just because of the new AG Pro sole plate and stud pattern tooling, but also because of the design of the upper, I genuinely think this is the best football boot on the market for use on artificial grass, and I'll explain why. Boots that, by the way, you can pick up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes via the link down below. And really quickly, if you enjoy the content, drop a like on the video, and if you appreciate the unsugar-coated, unsponsored, brutally honest opinions on this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2025. Where if we start at the base, one thing that a lot of people really don't like about the FG variant of the Phantom 6 is Nike's decision to maintain the Cyclone 360 stud layout, which are these 5-bladed studs positioned in a circle, basically right at the tip of the toe and on the balls of your feet. So when you twist and pivot, at least according to Nike, this is supposed to prioritize rotational movements, but in reality, as we all know, bladed studs do the exact opposite. They dig into the ground and cling, which is why this stud pattern offers more aggressive traction along the lines of a pair of speed boot rather than that super agile sensation that Nike is talking about in their marketing material. Where, don't get me wrong, it's still a really solid stud pattern for use on natural grass, but if you wanted to use this on artificial grass, these 5 blades are severely going to increase your risk of potential injury in that it's just going to cling to the playing surface, which is exactly what you don't want. Not to mention that if you do have any issues with durability in the short term, Nike would be able to refuse your warranty claim because you're wearing a pair of FG boots on a playing surface they weren't intended for, which is why they make the AG version. If these break when you use them on natural grass or artificial grass, Nike doesn't have anything to say about it. They will simply replace them because that shouldn't be happening. As far as the stud pattern is concerned, however, this doesn't stray too far away from what we've seen in the past from Nike with their AG Pro layouts. However, it is all new sole plate tooling for the AG Phantom 6, where the sole plate itself is a plastic material just like the FG version that I would say is more on the flexible side and honestly very comparable in terms of underfoot feel, but the studs, as you can see, are very different in that they're entirely conical across the entire bottom of the foot, and they have that little kind of cored out central piece as we've seen from Nike's AG Pro layouts for quite some time. You will also notice the stud length is quite a bit shorter than the FG variant, and they get really short the closer you get to the tip of the toe, given that you need that little bit of clearance as you kick the ball and get really close to the ground. You can even see that they've angled those 2 front studs just a little bit to allow you to slip your foot under the ball without having these front 2 studs catch. And then as a means of relieving some pressure through the forefoot, they put 4 little mini studs basically as support anchors that aren't necessarily there to make for more grip. They're just just there to support the sole plate from kind of buckling around the longer studs along the edges. If you're wondering why the studs are hollowed out through the middle, this has been Nike's AG design for quite some time, where the stud actually has a slight amount of flex to it at the very tip because of that cored out center that allows it to flex when pressure is applied and your foot is dug into the surface, basically as a relief point for the amount of grip that you're going to get. Where what you have to consider with an AG specific stud pattern is the goal isn't necessarily to provide as much grip as possible. The goal is to provide the appropriate amount of grip that is going to allow you to A, perform the way that you need to, and B, keep you safe. Because if you have too much grip on artificial grass, that's when you're putting yourself at a much higher risk of injury for your ankles, knees, and hips. Where don't get me wrong, you're not going to slip on artificial grass because of this stud pattern, but you're also not necessarily going to get stuck into the ground, which is where the danger comes into play. And then because the stud layout itself isn't really that different from, say, an FG Tiempo layout, even though the studs are going to be a little bit shorter, if you did want to use this on a natural grass playing surface, as long as it's not too soft where you would just want a slightly longer stud, this is going to perform like a more traditional conical stud pattern, offering really solid traction, meaning that if you're buying one pair of Phantom 6 to play on both natural and artificial playing surfaces, the AG Pro version is definitely the one you want. It's definitely a very simple design and arguably a little underwhelming in terms of appearance compared to all the crazy sole plates and stud patterns that we see these days, but in terms of use on artificial grass, this is everything that you need and nothing that you don't. As for the upper, it is identical to what you'll find with the FG variation, and of course with the new Phantom 6 you can get it as a high, as we see here, that gives you the mid-cut collar and the lace cover, or as a low that gives you more of a low cut design at the back and no lace cover. Instead you have a little bit of a hooded design towards the bottom of the foot. Both are available with the AG Pro sole plate and stud pattern, and both would be excellent choices. However, I think specifically for use on artificial grass, having the collar and the lace cover is actually a little bit of an advantage. Where veterans of artificial grass know that having this little bit of extra fly knit material closely wrapping your ankle, while it does nothing for the sake of performance or support like a lot of people believe, it does do a really nice job of sealing the opening of the football boot, where when you play on artificial grass and you have those tiny little rubber pellets that get absolutely everywhere, this collar means that those getting inside of your boots is a lot more difficult and a lot more unlikely. Something that the lace cover of the high cut Phantom 6 I think also helps with, in that it seals off any potential openings across the top of the foot. Of course, it does hide the laces underneath, so you're not giving up that adjustability and lockdown that comes with a lacing system. And for the sake of performance characteristics, obviously the Phantom 6, whether you go high or low, is going to have that grip knit upper that legitimately provides very noticeable additional grip on the ball. But with the high cut variation, you can see here in this teal blue color, it extends across the top of the foot, giving you some extra grip in an area of the foot that otherwise wouldn't have it on the low cut variation, which again is part of the reason why I actually like the highs a little bit more than the lows for the Phantom 6 generation. Having said that, even though I am calling this the ultimate football boot for artificial grass, if you don't like additional grip on the ball, the Phantom 6, simply put, probably isn't a great choice for you, so definitely be aware of that. And if you are buying it in a lighter colorway, where so far most of them have been on the darker side, but this launch one in particular is kind of like a light teal greeny blue, grip knit will stain quite easily, especially on artificial grass, from those black rubber pellets, where the knit itself is fully exposed on the surface. It has the grippy texture because that's actually part of the yarn, meaning that once those stains kind of get into the yarns, it's almost impossible to clean. Not to say that you can't make them look a little bit better with some effort, but in general, once they stain, they're stained permanently. But in all honesty, that's going to be an issue with any light colored boots regularly being used on artificial grass. And then there's the weight. Same upper, different different sole plates, which one is lighter, AG or FG? Both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the FG pair here in royal blue, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.45 ounces, the equivalent of 211 grams. Change the scale back to ounces, and we'll throw on the AG Pro variation, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.3 ounces, the equivalent of 207 grams. Meaning that the AG Pro variation is technically a little bit lighter than the FG model, however, it's only by 4 grams, which is a pretty insignificant amount of weight. When it comes to the fit and feel on feet, the AG Pro version of the Phantom 6 pretty much feels identical to that of the FG model, which is a very good thing, because we have seen certain situations where a brand goes from an FG sole plate to an AG one that's a little bit different in shape, and it alters the fit and feel of the football boot, either in a positive or a negative way, of course, depending on personal preference and the specific shape of your feet. Not the case here with the Phantom 6. It's exactly the same as the FG model, which is a good thing because that's one of my favorite aspects of this new Phantom model compared to GX2 and Luna 2 that this replaces, and honestly even the first generation GX1 and Luna 1. The shaping has been altered where there's a little bit more width, a little bit more volume, and generally just a rounder shape to the forefoot and toe box area that overall just makes this a very comfortable, easy to get along with pair of football boots. Obviously the upper is entirely made out of grip knit, which is a very close relative of Nike's Flyknit, meaning that these boots for the most part have that sock-like feel on feet and are very comfortable because of it. Soft and pliable in the upper, but also nice and flexible through the sole plate without being overly flimsy. The heel, the lockdown, everything about it is very, very comfortable out of the box. And for me, it is by far the most comfortable football boot currently on offer from Nike. As far as width and sizing goes, this is definitely Nike's widest current offering, and one that I think will work for just about everybody, even if you do have wider feet. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. Again, another change from the previous generation Phantoms, where they ran about a quarter size long. Because of the new shaping, these run much more true to size, taking away that little bit of additional space. So for the vast majority of people, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, if you like extra grip on the ball, hate getting rubber pellets inside of your football boots, and want an AG specific stud pattern that is pretty much as good as it gets, look no further than the Phantom 6 Elite High with the AG Pro sole plate.